Room, the only way to start your day.
H-I.
Hashi.
A lot of people call it Hasi, a lot of people call it Hirsi. It's actually Hashi. It means tall camel.
Oh, there you go.
Karibu.
Hashi. Well, I
This is
guess
tall camel.
you do live up to the bidding, at least in the tall part.
Yeah, I live the only part is I don't have the nice eyes that the camel.
It's the eyelashes. It's the eyelashes. It's all in the eyelashes. Not to say that the folks in the beauty industry can do something for that for you if you're interested.
Very funny.
Karibu both.
Asante, Karibu.
Thank you so much for being here this morning. Conversations that are necessary for us to have, and so we do that in the Situation Room. Before we do that, Dennis goes around the African continent every week.
Wow.
He comes back by some,
Privileged.
way, and he'll tell us which country he's landed in today, and we'd love to then hear your interpretation of the proverb that he will share.
Yeah, so today we are in a country called Botswana, right?
Oh,
and
great,
it's a
nice
country that has a lot of beautiful things, one would argue. And we talk about the Okavango Delta, which is one of the world's largest inland deltas, and also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, as well as diamonds, one of the largest diamond producers in the continent.
Yeah.
And it is actually considered to be Africa's success story. Why? For its political stability since independence in 1966. A lot of things to enjoy from this country. But let's go straight to our proverb this morning. If the cattle die, the people die. If the cattle die, the people die. The man who lives to the building of being tall goes fast. How would you interpret that?
The country is actually a cattle rearing country. And what people don't know is that before the Holocaust happened in Germany, during the First World War, they came to practice on the Hamba. The community is called the Hamba or the Himba. And now it's a United Nations case because they lost over 1 million people by torture, death, and the killing of their cattle. So I know for a fact that cattle is a way of life in Botswana. I'm sorry, maybe I'm confusing Botswana with Namibia. But I know that whole region is made of cattle. So I think that it's very close to a Somali saying that we have. And I think it means that just as camels are life for us, it means cattle is also life for that community. That's my take.
Prof, how would you interpret that?
Well, I think in that country, as you have correctly said, that has been one of the most democratic countries, except there have been some recent hiccups. But traditionally, Botswana, Mauritius have been, bulwarks of democracy on the continent. And as Hamed has said, the cattle are really the wealth of the country. Of course, there's diamonds and so on, but cattle is both a way of life culture. And therefore, it's if you lose the wealth of a nation, you lose the nation. And you can say that for any country, in Africa, any country in the world, there is something that is precious, which really gives its wealth. Like here also, our young people, our wealth. And if we don't treat them well, we are compromising our wealth.
That's it.
Absolutely. Well said. And so, I guess the words that you use kind of start us off into our conversation this morning. And we're taking a look at things that could be happening inwardly. Usually when you go to the doctor and you say, okay, you say, this is how I'm feeling. And they look at you and they're going to prod here and there. Then after some time, they're going to say, you know what? How about we take a look at what's happening inside, and it will help us to know how we can deal now with these outward manifestations of whatever it may be. Is it time for Kenya to take a look inside, to do some blood work, Prof?
Good question.
Well, who will do that? Because to take an inward look, you really need a lot of honesty. Because what you will find, if you're genuine, can be, hurting, it can be ugly, and then you have to face it, and you have to be genuine. We have been trying to do that. All these reports from 64, whether it's Dungu report, whether it is more recently Anan, whether it is BPI, whether it is NADCO, we try to look inward without looking inward. And one hopes a time is coming when we will be tired of such shenanigans and we will look inward for real. The young people are forcing us to kind of pause and decide whether we want to look inward. But I think we did not accept that opportunity. But having said that, I still hope, as you have asked, that we are, going to look inward so that we can say, given where our country is, why do we continue to have all these problems of misgovernance, not following the constitution, of corruption, of name them? So yes, we need to genuinely look inward. And maybe, I don't know, if it's something that can be done without necessarily the politicians being at the helm, that could help us. And I don't know who else could be at the helm. I don't know whether it's the professionals, I don't know whether it's the academia, it's the civil society, it is the faith society, fourth sector, the youth themselves. But the last person to really help us look inward, unfortunately, is Kenya's politician.
I'm going to stick with that medical analogy just a little bit more, because usually then when you do the test, right, it is the result of that test that the doctor will then say, because of what we have found happening here, then this is what we must do. We must go for surgery, or we must cut the thing off, or we apply some kind of medication, antibiotic, whatever. There have been a lot of things that have been done. There's been a broad-based government thrown at it. There's been, and then even within the broad-based government, there's a now Dennis's favorite 5-man committee now has also been thrown at the thing. And then there is, empowerment drives and everything happening at the same time. And then before any of that even happens, we have external parties coming and saying, you guys need to fix this thing. Otherwise, we're not going to be body-body with you anymore.
I think the question we're asking ourselves is whether or not the political structure that we have today in Kenya serves the interests of the people of this country, politically speaking. I mean by this that, we have adopted a very strange first across the post system. When our communities, our societies are uneven, we have young people who are more in the modern milieu of their lives. And then we have a rural breakup, and we have different types of Kenyans based on ethnicity, on gender, and all these things. So I've always argued that we need a parliamentary system of government. Because once you have a parliamentary system of government, the executive is in parliament and can be checked in a really fundamental way. We decided to use the American system of checks and balances and the separation of powers. But it is not really germane to our way of life. We were just speaking about Botswana's cows. Our way of life is the whole country has decided that governance has to come closer to the people, because the state, as it were, never really tried to help the country, tried to help itself. And then that's why you have these uneven economies. East Africa broke down. We killed the person who created Kenya's foreign affairs, Tom Mboya, and Lee Kuan Yew is the one who said that. So I think that we have to question whether or not, the Constitution is not a Quran or it's not a Bible, it's man-made. And I think this first across the system post is what the biggest problem we have in this country. What we need is a representational system of power and a consensual system of power in which everybody is accountable to everybody in a system of legislative government. The old British traditions that we had were abandoned because Jomo Kenyatta wanted to get power. He put the Prime Minister and the President together. So I think if we have a Governor General and a Prime Minister, because we have 47 counties, as the former Governor of Makueni knows, that what we need is a Governor General here on top, who is a representative of all the governors, and he's been chosen in the National Assembly with the leading political party. I'm not saying that we just force minorities to just share power by force, no. But the leading political party nor do I say the majoritarians have to be tyrannical. So we have to find a balance, because every time someone goes into government, Raila Odinga goes into government with him. It's bizarre. Don't you think?
Why?
Because he was not elected. But it is unfortunate that he was beaten by 200,000 votes and he cannot be part of the government. That means exactly half the people of Kenya have been thrown down the river.
So the past the post doesn't work.
Doesn't work for us.
First past the post clearly doesn't work for Kenya.
For Africa.
Because for the last how many elections,
Yes.
you've always had to either have a coalition or you've had to have power sharing in
Exactly,
government.
because the country is split right down the middle. And therefore, this 1 or 2 votes that you go past the post, how does that give you legitimacy to govern this country? It does not. It's just the system that has given you legitimacy. It's not the moral sense in the country that has given you legitimacy.
Hash, are you saying that President William Ruto doesn't have the moral legitimacy?
He doesn't
to
have the
lead
moral
country?
legitimacy. He has the legal legitimacy. He's killing children. Where does he get the moral legitimacy to rule this country? When you sit in that chair, you have to follow the spirit of the Constitution. Not only is he not following the spirit of the Constitution, he is flagrantly causing death and bedlam in this country. There's over 60 people who have died, maybe more. The freedom of the press allows you to say that. It allows you to say that this is not right, and that the government of the people and by the people and for the people should not be despite the people. I mean, it should be for the people. And therefore, I think that that Mr. Ruto has lost all moral authority. And everybody knows in 2027, the entire country is in the opposition. We're waiting for the candidate that we're going to put up so that we can throw Mr. Ruto and his acolytes into the dustbin of history.
Professor Kibwana, with just taking from what Hashi said, the issue of representation. So at the moment is legally, the winner will take it all, the majority. Whether it's percentage, it's in just clear numbers. If we break down from what Hash is saying to a parliamentary system, is the problem we have in Kenya a governance structure, a representation structure, or is it lacking structures of oversight, lacking structures of accountability and recall? Because even at the moment, the conversation is we want to recall these guys, but IBC say there's no, currently you cannot do that. But people wish you go there for 5 years, but if in 1 year you're not satisfying what you said you will do, then we have the power to recall you. How do we strike the balance? What structures then do we need?
First of all, let me say, Hamed said the constitution is man-made. Actually, it is man-woman made.
I agree 100%.
Yes.
And actually I agree with him that the system that we have is not serving us. And but I will want to tilt a bit his exposition by saying one of the reasons that this system does not work for us is the politicians use negative ethnicity to arrange politics. And as a consequence, when several ethnic groups, are supposed to come together because their kingpins, their leaders have told them that this is how we shall vote, that is where you have that divide, so that it's very difficult for anybody to win. And one is talking about like the 5 main ethnic groups. So unless that situation is first of all dealt with, so that to borrow again the metaphor of morality, so that we have moral ethnicity, meaning positive ethnicity, enjoying our culture, like Section 7, 11, Article 7, Article 11, Article 44 of the Constitution say, so that is the province of enjoying our different cultures. But when we weaponize them, when we make them the fulcrum of politics, then we will continue with that situation of several people, coming together and one person saying that, this is how we vote. And as a result, then we have that hung parliament, and so on and so forth. But I do agree that at Bomas, the Bomas draft of our constitution was actually a draft constitution that told us to go that way, proportional representation, and maybe, also a few parliamentary seats, so that it was like a mixed system. But that proportional representation would mean that communities, you didn't feel left out because somebody kind of hogged the political space. And therefore, one hopes that at some future point, not before 2027, because now if you tinker with the constitution, it will be changed to advantage, the political class. But maybe down the road, after 2027, hopefully, then we can ask ourselves, do we want to look at this constitution to see particularly the way of representation? And there are a few other things like the gender question, and so on. And then, of course, the question of recall. You see, it's very unfair for whether it is IEBC in its infancy to say that you cannot recall people, because when the constitution has provisions, and even there's some interpretation on that matter by the courts, then it really means that you can just use the constitution. You don't have to, say that there was some law which was not passed, because the law, if I can remember, the law for recall for parliamentarians was to be done within 1 year of passage of the constitution. The law for recall of MCAs was to be done 18 months after the promulgation of the constitution. So there is a precedent, saying that even when a particular law has not been passed, the constitution is enough. So this idea of you cannot recall is a foreign idea, and I don't expect that Parliament will be in a hurry to pass any law to get, a majority of them recalled. So we need to continue to, be faithful so that we don't cheat the Constitution. I saw, as I came in, somewhere there written, don't cheat. So that we don't cheat the Constitution, we are faithful to the Constitution.
Yeah, but then again, we look at a situation where now this is what we go through internally in terms of issues affecting us. But then again, you look at policies that are made at the government level in terms of how we relate with others. And key in point, we now look at how Kenya is relating with its neighbors. So let's look at Kenya, Sudan, Kenya, U.S., Kenya, Russia, Kenya, Iran, Kenya, China. And you find that because Kenya has made decisions to have other friends, there is the aspect that now Kenya is being discussed in the U.S. Senate. And if our relations with the U.S. is stripped, it's no longer as good as it were. What do we get to lose, or how difficult will it be for us to do business with the U.S., if any, Hash?
I think it's uncanny, the lack of depth. I think we don't have a problem with the intellectual capacity of people to understand foreign affairs and to help this country in its relations with other states. We have a paramount chief at State House, and this is not something it's not something I said. I've said it when he was being inaugurated. I said this is what's going to happen. He's going to ruin the economy, right here at KTN. He's not going to bring people together. And I'm the one who invented the word one term.
It was you, Hash?
Yes, it's here on tape. I was with the Bahalaine. Yeah. And the Gachagua picked it up. I criticized Gachagua at the same venue for his ethnic negativity. But I think that it is not right for Kenya Army guns and bullets to be in the middle of Khartoum, in the middle of a civil war. That's just not okay. It's not okay for Kizza Besigye to be abducted in the middle of the city. That's not okay. It's not okay for us to deport Kurds from Turkey who work for a national liberation organization, who have come to secure us under the expert on law, on international law, the right to go to another safe haven, not to be abducted. It's not okay. It's not okay for the president to say that he's going to he's a co-architect of a new world order. That's not okay, because we're a small country in the eastern seaboard of Africa, and we cannot be co-architects of a new world order right now. We can be co-architects of the new world order if we bring East Africa together, if we break down the boundaries, and we create a common home with about 300 million people on the eastern seaboard of Africa. We can stand up and say, we are co-architects. West Africa can do the same. North Africa can do the same. And Kwame Nkrumah's call that Africa was not born in me. I think you're from West Africa, are you? Mm-hmm. So the greatest leader we had came from West Africa. Actually, the two greatest leaders, and one from the DRC. So I think that when he says that Africa was, I was born in Africa, but Africa was born in me, is that we have a spiritual and intellectual and moral connection to the whole continent because of our exploitation by the world order. So I'll give you a simple example. They made the UN. They made the World Bank. They made all kinds of institutions in this world, and we were not there. We were still fighting against colonialism. We did not participate in anything. So when we got independence, all of us went to fait accompli. We were told, sit here in the UN, press this button, but the system had already been made up. You know, the League of Nations failed Ethiopia. You guys are too young to remember this history. We were taught history. The League of Nations failed Ethiopia when Italy invaded them, right?
Yes.
What is it that makes the United Nations and the security institutions in the world and the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank Africa friendly? No,
It's nothing.
nothing. So what kind of leaders do we want so that we can, because part of our poverty and our helplessness comes from a rigged economic system.
So Hashim, sorry, if that is the case, then why should it matter whether Kenya is a non-major, non-NATO ally, brother, sister, cousin? What should it matter if what you're saying is
you are the diplomat. You are the diplomat.
If that's the case, and they don't take into consideration what happens on this side of the pond,
Yes.
why should it matter if you're a non-voting, non-veto power
Yes,
ally of
exactly.
this group in the first place?
Exactly. Burkina Faso is showing us what to do. And the Sahel Union. We have to go and touch the moral wires of our societies and the real steak and potatoes of our communities. We have to transform our societies. We're in the 21st century. We've got to get rid of a lot of baggage. I don't say we get rid of our cultures, because our cultures are ancient and they're very beautiful. China has created a political system that they see fit for China. You may agree with it, you might not disagree with it, but they developed their economy and they lifted 600 million people out of poverty. It just makes me gasp. Leadership was being shown by Deng Xiaoping. Leadership. We have politicians in this country who come to the State House. So Professor stayed on some containers of ethnicity. And what they do is they just are corrupt. The president gave 1.2 billion shillings to build a church in the State House. There is no country in the world where president does that would not have been arrested by the prosecutor. Does he get 1.2 billion from selling chicken?
Apparently.
We have to be fierce about our country. We have to be really fierce about it. Otherwise, we will not have a country. Sudan is the first independent black nation, not Ghana. 1958. It had universities when we didn't have it. It was trading with the rest of the world when we didn't have through the Red Sea. They had a whole culture and a civilization. What destroyed it? Military rule. Because the military rule did not know when to go inside, fix it, and go back to the camp, like maybe Rawlings did. Though I don't agree with much of what he did. And we have also...
Rawlings shot people in the square.
In the square, yeah.
Yes, he did.
But you know what? Those people, they were taking money from baby feed from kids,
Yes,
people
true.
did not have diapers because they were sending the money to Swiss accounts. Don't you think people like that need to get shot?
As they did, and Ghana turned around.
Ghana is now different.
Yeah.
The election was won by the last village, the last constituency, and by a few votes. And the Electoral Commission counted it. And when the guy said it was won, the whole country said, yes, he won.
Is that what it's going to take, Professor, because we've seen what good governance looks like, and it's probably sitting right in front of me. We've seen what it looks like and what it can actually achieve. And here we are as nations wanting to be part of bigger blocks. You know, look at what's happening in East Africa at the moment. Look at what's happening where maybe Tanzania wants to be part of SADC and doesn't want to be part of the EAC. But can you then have nations to be part of bigger blocks with a particular agenda if you have not gotten your ducks in a row, if you've not gotten your things in order? And then if you haven't, how can you? Because we need to just take a look at what's happening at the moment, where there are certain things that are just not working, right? I mean, it sounds as though we're the proverbial lamentators, but unfortunately, you talk about what you see, isn't it? That, yeah, the health system is in a shambles.
Yep.
It is. That's the truth. That we're going into the third term in about 2 weeks now for school, and we still got 7,000 shillings that we've not paid in capitation to students around the country. We read a story today, heartbreaking. 21 women in childbirth will die. 10 of those 21 will die because of postpartum hemorrhage. And we don't have the tools to test the overflow of bleeding. Why don't we have the tools? Because we don't have the money. But in the same breath, a helicopter was hired for 2 million shillings, Okari?
Yes, 2 million shillings
To go to Voi.
ferry a CS to Voi.
Not the president. It may not even that's excusable. But to ferry a CS to Voi, here, if you open your eyes maybe wide enough, you can see Voi. But how then do we say work out the governance to then have these conversations? Can you really have external conversations when insular issues are not being worked out?
I was just thinking, if I had, some power in the country, I would ask the CS to take the SGR to Voi.
It gets there.
Very easy and comfortable.
30 minutes.
And we can concede them first class, which is 3,000 something shillings. So we are really talking about systemic breakdown of our institutions. And it is mostly man-made. Now I'll say man-made because there are not many women doing that. Just like what you said about the institutions of the West not having accommodated African people. Again, these institutions of our countries, have been damaged so that, whether it's the economic system, whether it is the political system, whether it is whatever system. So we have shells of countries, but these shells somehow privilege, particularly the political people. So it is not easy for them to concede that they should operate within a larger unit in a meaningful sense, because they want to keep their small places so that they can, continue doing the corruption thing, being, the lords of these small places. Now, if one looks at East Africa, for example, it is like they said somewhere, particularly the former East African community, the three countries, it's like they said somewhere and said, we shall abduct our citizens, we shall terrorize the young people, we shall steal the elections, it's like there is some place where they sit and do that kind of stuff. Not what, like when I was growing up, and I'm still growing up, I would imagine.
Sure.
But in primary school, we used the same money for all the countries. There was those big notes, and we didn't have to, when you were crossing a border, you didn't have to, have, like any paper, because, and that was long ago. So normally people improve, they don't regress. But, we are regressing. But, having said that, you talked about lamentation. We shouldn't continue just lamenting, and lamenting. And unfortunately, when once in a while a group comes to tell us that we have to change course because what we are doing is perilous, it's going to harm us, there is a lot of resistance from, again, the powers that be. And then you get, like, when now these systems are challenged, you get now this business of PR, like what you said earlier. You get some empowerment, programs where, our mothers go, they stay the whole day, they don't, work in the garden, and they get 64 shillings. The border guys. And actually, many of those people, the border young people, those bikes are not theirs. They are for the teacher, they are for the business person in the rural area, they are for people who are working in Nairobi or whatever other city. So even in that area, one doesn't look for something that is sustainable, like really saying, what can we do to cause a national youth martial empowerment plan, something real, so that people can get jobs, so that there can be social entrepreneurship, there can be things like that. And therefore, we really have to, if I can use this word, force the political class to accept to sit down with the citizenry, so that we can ask, how do we go forward? What is the best way for us to enjoy the country together, so that it isn't a preserve of just one group?
Then in that case, Prof, are you in support of what Raila Odinga was suggesting? Have an intergenerational conclave and have these conversations?
Why didn't he suggest it before the Gen Zs, came to the picture? And there's been BBI, there's been NADCO more recently. And usually, if you look at those reports, they are reports, and there are many pages, and they are very wordy. But the bottom line is, why don't we have a prime minister, a deputy prime minister, two deputy prime ministers, leader of opposition? And it is not in the way that Ahmed was saying to really restructure power, but simply to accommodate the different ethnicities, so that all of them are at the eating table.
At the eating table.
I mean, Hashi, I just want to digress a bit to something that you pointed out when you're describing Ethiopia. And just recently, and I think we still do, the trade tiff between Kenya and Tanzania. And looking at, back up a bit to the history, not just Samia Suluhu, this has happened many, many times. And we had a discussion here about why do we keep having this push and pull between Kenya and Tanzania?
Yeah.
Are we so fragmented that unity is an illusion, not just within this region? Because this reverberates to now what we are discussing, Kenya-U.S. relations. It's Kenya-China. To the extent that, and I'll borrow Lee from a conversation I had with someone over the weekend. And this is somebody who has a very huge turnover business-wise. And she was telling me, interestingly, as we are busy politicking, it is impossible. I mean, it's very possible for you to go to China, do importation. The structures are so opened. You can go to Vietnam and do business. You can go to so many other countries, do business. But if you want to take something from Kenya to Nigeria, for example, or
It's
Ghana,
impossible.
you have to go through South Africa.
Yeah.
We've locked ourselves, even in terms of how you move from one country to another, all those restrictions. Yet we still have ECOWAS, we still have AU, we still have ESC, we talk about SADC, we talk about all these things. Is it an illusion?
It's not only an illusion, it is an illusion wrapped up in an enigma. For me to go to West Africa, I have to go to Dubai. Mm-hmm. It's outrageous. I think that we need to just wake up because there is a group, a political class in each of our countries that serve the interests of the metropole. I mean, I can't find any other explanation to this. So what we need is a popular, national, regional political class that is more interested in lifting their countries up than serving imperial masters. Because I can't take a direct flight from here to N'Djamena in Chad, where some of my community is, and I have to go through Dubai, then stop in Nigeria, and then take a truck and go to N'Djamena. That's neo-imperialism. There's no other word for it. The great Frantz Fanon said that the native doesn't want his freedom. He wants the settler's farm, and preferably his blonde wife. Very pithy understanding of what was coming to this continent. So I believe that the reason why there is a total uprising in every country in Africa, and I predicted this on TV. Ivory Coast, there's massive demonstration against Wallace Ouattara. He's married to a blonde French woman. I don't mean to impugn him, but I'm just using that as Fanon's context. We have 30-year-olds overthrowing governments in the entire Sahel. Because in Burkina Faso, people were so poor they didn't have a choice. It was just a disaster. Right now, they have one of the biggest cancer hospitals in West Africa. He just gave out over 500 tractors for women to go and lima their shamba. Corruption has come to an end, literally speaking. So we have to have people who have consciousness to say we're not going to allow for the rape of Africa. Today in Niger, I think it's in this newspaper, there was a meteorite that fell from Mars. We used to fashion those things, even in the Makkah, in the Muslim faith, inside, when we do you go around the Makkah. The stone, as we believe, is from heaven. But it came down as a meteorite. It's in there. So they sold it for $5 million at Sotheby's in New York. Someone just went, picked it up, put it on a truck, and what were the authorities doing there? What were the people doing there? So I think we ought to end this absolute rape of our continent by foreign interests first and by local interests. And when we do that, then we'll be able to achieve the things that we want: free healthcare, free education for the children to have a chance. Exploitation is connected. It's not national. It's all connected. So we nearly had a popular national revolution the other day by children under 25. We were going to go the Bangladeshi way. But they stopped. Or they were stopped by bullets. And they didn't want to cross that Rubicon. They want to wait for an election. They want to wait for an election. And the entire political class is going to be thrown out of power. The question that we have about the Gen Zs is whether they're going to create an institution of a political party, and they're going to get people of moral persuasion who have struggled for this country to try and drive them and tell them this is the places where you should jump, but they should hold the leadership. We need change in this country. We don't care how it comes, but we need change. I, for one, want a popular election in this country, because I feel that is for the good of the country. But if this regime or this system continues in this way, these kids will overthrow everybody and take power by force. It's happened everywhere.
But those same kids have been told, look, we are going to steal the election. We're going to stuff the ballot boxes.
I don't think you would dare do that.
You don't think
so?
so?
First of all, the polling station...
It's not been said once. It's not been said twice or
Professor
thrice.
Kivuda, my senior and my teacher, will tell you in 1 second that everything is being counted at the polling station. I think that's the law, if I'm not mistaken. They will be there at the polling station protecting their vote. You'll start seeing on Twitter, protect the vote. We are playing with fire. We need to accept this transformation peacefully. We need to accept it very clearly. We need to let it come, and we need it to come in a very peaceful way. Because there's something called the Annales School. There's a guy who's written about something called in French the longue durée, a period in which the rings of history meet. He's called Fernand Braudel, a French philosopher. The rings of history have met in Kenya because those governments before didn't want to do anything. My group and Mr. Kivuda's group, we brought the constitution, we brought devolution. We fought for those things. Mr. Kivuda here, the governor here, fought very much for the constitution, so did I. But he did more than I did. Because he was with his generation, him and Gitobu Manyara, Raila Odinga. Those are the people who fought the second liberation to bring this constitution. These kids have weaponized this constitution. It means something to them. It's living. It's not something that the elite pact had made because they were afraid of being arrested by whoever went into power. That was a major drive for creating this constitution. But these kids believe that this is their gift. And then they got a prosperous time with Mr. Kibaki, who was not a good politician, but if you had given him at independence the reins of power, this country would have been completely transformed. We would not be talking here right now.
Which brings me to the question that you look at the youth and the change that they want and the demands that they have. But then again, you look at a government and a system that says, first of all, let's get into a conclave. Or if that's not working, I'm going to take you to State House 5,000. Let's give you bikes and tanks and everything. One would argue, instead of tanks, why don't you just bring us piped water? That's a conversation for another day, Prof. So if you look at what is happening right now, is the current political class ready for the change that is coming?
No. It's like Maria Antoinette when she was told that the people are complaining because there is no food. And then she said, what about cake? There's no bread. What about cake? Sometimes, because I've been a politician before, we live in a fool's paradise. And sometimes you don't see, loss coming. Even when, you are going to lose an election. Sometimes even your spouse doesn't tell you, or if she does or he does, you don't believe it because you will always win. But having said that, our politicians, are very cunning because when they see danger, and sometimes they're advised by NIS that there is looming danger, they have a tendency of coming together so that, people you thought are rivals cease being rivals and they are working together. If actually one examines carefully, our main political players, at one time or another, they have worked together in the same group. And, they separate and then they come together and it's musical chairs. So they have also an instinct of survival. But even with that instinct, you can only survive for so long. Like now, this idea of let us even assume the young people went to State House were 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. There are 14 million, young people between 18 and 35. So how are you going to give them border and to give them, all those kinds of things, that they were, kind of being given. And sometimes you hear people are told you'll get this, but go home, then it will be brought, and it is never brought. It's a sure thing. But I detect this feeling that the system has decided that somehow they have to try to engage these young people. But I don't think that the young people are going to feel them. I think they want some kind of conversation with them. I don't know, maybe even the National Youth Council elections, maybe somewhere down the road and stuff like that. But I think the political people have done, enough trouble against these young people so that the young people are just saying, well, we'll wait. We'll wait. We are younger than you, we will survive you, even as you kill some of us. What I don't...
Sorry, please go ahead.
Yes, what I don't know is in elections, like we are going to have 23 by-elections. And in these by-elections, I think you'll have a lot of jostling because it's like not quite like the little general elections of 1969, but it's going to be used, for somebody to say, look, I have won, and therefore in 2027, I will win. I think that we will see a lot of jostling and stuff like that. And so, even for the young people, to get IDs, to be able to get the voters card, to be able to really organize, so that the energies of June,
that's the
2025,
yes.
and 2024, 2025, yes. Saba. If those energies are honest, then we will be talking about another story. But if they are scattered,
that's the problem.
That will be a problem.
Do politicians know, and this is across board, doesn't matter, or people in leadership, are you aware at some point that perhaps there is dissatisfaction from the people that you lead and then decide to do something about it? Perhaps I'm asking the wrong person because you at one point felt that and you said, okay, fine. If there's a problem, let's dismantle the whole thing and go back to the ballot. Let's say let's go again and choose it. You in Makweni, you said okay, all MCAs, even myself, let's go back to the ballot.
Yeah.
And let's say if this is not working right now, let the people say what they want. Well, the people said again that they wanted you to come back, and then you were able to work through. But you felt something, and you heard there was dissent, there was dissatisfaction. I'm not saying that all individuals are the same, but does leadership at some point feel, okay, guys, this is not working. Let us go back to the drawing board. And if so, why is it so difficult then to get that done? Because it does seem that, unfortunately, there's so many balls up in the air, and some of them are losing air.
I think like where we are here now in the Situation Room, I would imagine you always want to make the best of your programs, and you therefore intentionally will say to yourself what is working well, what is not working well, and what can we do. There is competition out there, there is expectation, and all that. But our politicians, and I was there, and Hamed has said about the entire continent. It's like people go into position without really knowing what they want to do, particularly for the people. It's like, I'm going there is money, I'm going to make money, I'm going to be rich, I will use the money to get elected again. And so it's really a tragedy. But I'm not saying that it's everybody who is of that mind. But sometimes when they realize that you really want to do things to be of service to the people, you are an enemy to those who think that that is not what should be done. And they try to get you out. They smoke you out. And they use all sorts of things. So that's why I think the young people, going back to the young people, are really saying that this has to change. If you want a job as a politician, it's like if you're in the private sector, I mean, you have to do the job. If you don't, you get fired. But here, people say, I have 5 years, nothing will happen. Even I can't accept recall and stuff like that. So I think it's really having a new mindset, so that you're asking for a job. You don't have to be paid, like 1 million shillings when somebody else is being paid, 5,000 shillings in your country, so that you have the conscience to see that that is wrong. So I think, what is kind of in gestation in our country is a new thinking that you must be in politics to serve. And it's a job like any other job. And therefore, if you don't do right, there will be repercussions.
I think I'm running for a seat in Langata to go to the National Assembly. And the reason I'm doing that is I could earn more money in the private sector. I earn more money in the private sector than the salary that I would get there. So the reason I'm running is the biggest problem we have in this country is the National Assembly. It's not the executive. We know about this imperial presidency and all these things. But the National Assembly is at the heart of the government. It is where our laws are made. It is the talisman where we can change the direction of the ship of state. And what has happened in the political parties in this country is that these so-called leaders have put a list, and in each constituency they have put the person that they want. And then they give them their ticket. I was the spokesman for the Orange Democratic Movement and the chief strategist for the Pentagon. They give them the vote, and you get people like, what's that MP for Kapkater? Sudi. Kapsaret.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I pronounced it wrongly. So the reason why he's there is because he's a hatchet man. President tells him, go do that,
Why he's a member of parliament? He was voted in by the people of Kapsaret.
Because they went and played the big ethnic card. When William Ruto goes to Kapsaret and says, "Huyu ndio muti yangu," he'll get the vote. Because there's inter-ethnic competition at the top. So we have to give the ethnic leader all the arms. William Ruto has never, ever voted for anything progressive in his entire political life. You know that, right? He even opposed the Constitution of Kenya. He opposed it.
He did. He voted no.
He voted no.
In the referendum.
Yeah, everybody was around with that. I'm not saying anything egregious. Am I saying anything egregious?
No. I'm saying what happened.
I'm saying things in the public record, right? right?
Yes, yes.
So I believe firmly that it's very important for us to be fierce about our country, because if we don't have any other power. I'm not going to run to another country today. Neither should you. Neither should we face any civil conflict because of the rights of the people. That's not right. For us to be held by the din of a rifle, said if you don't stay in your place and follow that, we're all going to burn. That's why the president keeps saying, "Munataka kuchoma nchi." That's the mentality behind it. Is that 1984, George Orwell's book, should be required reading in school.
It should.
And that is exactly what is happening. It is Orwellian. Secondly, I think that I'm a firm believer in constitutional government. From the bottom of my heart, I believe in it. Because if you don't have a constitutional system of government and laws, then sooner or later someone's going to abuse the state, and there'll be no responsibility.
And you'll be doing another George Orwell
Exactly. And then you'll have the 2-minute scream of Watson. Now, what we want is to have a National Assembly that works. That is really important. And we used to have it during the time of 212 MPs. Who's who of the political class that were on the floor over the most fundamental issues of this question and would sway the public opinion for us to go. And now it's only the president speaking.
And others.
And the standard of the level of the people in the National Assembly is shocking. People could not swear in English or in Kiswahili. This country has got some of the most educated
to
people.
swear in their
in
mother
their
tongue.
native and their mother tongue.
You see, this country has some of the most educated people on the continent. But what we want is a moral and ethical transformation in this country.
And that's what's going to lead us. If anything, it's good for us to put these ideas out there. That's why we have these conversations. And I want to thank you both for being here with us this morning. Ahmed Hashi is a foreign policy expert, as well as former governor of Makwene County, Professor Kivuda Kibwana. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you so much. It's a lot of fun. Thank you.
Asante Sana. Good morning. 2 minutes past 8.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to